You guys in the right room? Are you here for Blackjack and Preachers? All right. All right, so my name is Tanisha Martin. I am the executive director and founder for Black Girls Hack. I am a researcher, a hacker. I'm excited to be here, and I am presenting with my friend and colleague, Dr. Elise McGowan. So, disclaimer, I will add our own disclaimer, which says that our views are those of ourselves and not of those of our employers or our organizations. All right, so who are we? Who am I? As I mentioned, I'm the executive director for Black Girls Hack. We're a nonprofit. I am a wife, a hacker. I've got 5 master's degrees, a whole bunch of certifications, and a doctorate that is loading. I am also the CEO of BGH Security, a gambler, which will be relevant to this conversation, and a researcher of AI, cybersecurity education, and a penetration tester.
And I am Elise McGowan, the CISO for Black Girls Hack. Also a wife, mother, cybersecurity analyst, and a hacker. I have a PhD in computer science, master's and bachelor's degree in management information systems. I am a baby gambler, which Tanisha will mention later on, and also do research in cybersecurity, policy development, and also in consumer engagement.
All right, so as I mentioned in my introduction, if there's anything that I'm interested in outside of obviously school and hacking, it's gambling. So as you can imagine, I've spent quite a bit of time inside of casinos. Do we have any gamblers in the room? Okay, so like a couple of people that are actually admitting it. Okay, got it. All right, so let me set the scene. You drive into a casino parking lot and they literally see you coming, okay? They've got license plate readers that surveil the buildings before you even walk through the door. You get to the door, they ask you for your ID just to make sure you are who they think you are. And before you ever hit the guard booth, you've got your face on one of over 2,000 monitors, or 2,000 cameras that connect to about 50 to 75 monitors that survey every inch of the building with the exception of hopefully the bathrooms and maybe the hotel rooms. So their surveillance state exists far outside of the casino floor. So for example, they use tools such as NORA, which is non-obvious relationship awareness, to uncover relationships between things like dealers and gamblers or pit bosses and players, for example, outside of the casinos. And while casinos are very serious about their physical security, they're much more serious about their money. So in a 2008 conference, a guy named Jeff Jonas, who helped build facial recognition systems for the casino industry, or most of the casino industry, said that casinos spend the minimum amount of money on security. He said that they would rather buy 3 more slot machines than spend any more money on security. So if you're a security professional, this does not surprise you. It exists everywhere. The second thing that casinos hoard more than money is information. I'd argue that casinos are maybe about half data, half money. I began looking into casino security when I started my doctorate in cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, as I mentioned. And I did a couple of assignments where I had to start researching an industry. The first assignment was a review of their privacy policy of a business that I frequently do business with. So I was like, hey, I'm over here on their website anyway, let's just check this out. The second one was the use of artificial intelligence and augmented and virtual reality in the casino industry. So what my research showed was that casinos collect a lot of data on a lot of people to direct their marketing. I mentioned license plate readers, but they also collect your browsing history, your educational information, your information about your preferences, your online activity, your proclivities, your commercial activity, psychological trends, predispositions, etc. So I found it was interesting was that when you use Wi-Fi in one of their buildings, which you pretty much have to if you want to be on your phone, they track your precise location at each moment while you're in their location. But it's only for marketing purposes, so don't worry. So, cyber criminals are attracted to data and money like mosquitoes to blood, and the casino industry has about a $300 billion market size with an estimated annual growth of about 5%. Every year, casinos attract millions of gamblers and billions of dollars. So if you're looking to be where the money is at, a casino is it. But as you can imagine, with millions of visitors, casinos have a lot of data. And how do you impact an industry that has an abundance of both data and money that you can't live without as a hacker? Well, you hold it for ransom.
So let's set the stage. Imagine the casino cyber attacks as a high-stake game of poker, but with cybersecurity. So the players, the house, normally the house has the advantage with extensive security measures in place to protect its assets. The cyber criminals, hackers, are skilled players who are looking to outsmart the house using their expertise in technology. The game, the deck, cybersecurity systems represent the various security protocols and measures in place to protect the casino's digital assets. The hand, sensitive data, the valuable information the house holds, which in this case includes personal data of customers. The play, the hackers ante up, find a vulnerability. They look for any weakness in the casino security to gain an initial foothold. The bluff, social engineering. Hackers use deception like phishing and other tactics to trick employees into giving up access or information. The raise, system infiltration. Once inside, they increase their access and control over the casino systems. The all-in, data breach. Hackers go for the jackpot, attempting to extract as much valuable information as they can. The showdown, the fold, system shutdown. The casino, realizing the breach, shuts down affected systems to stop the attack. The call, investigation and response. The casino responds by investigating the breach, notifying affected customers, and bolstering their security measures to prevent future attacks. In the end, the house must learn from the play, improve its hand, and be ready for the next round with even better strategies to protect its assets. Just like in a casino, the stakes are high, and the house must always be vigilant to stay ahead of the game.
All right, so we're going to talk about the history of breaches and ransomware in the gaming industry. So you should expect to be immersed in the disruptive history of malicious actors in the gaming industry and hear trial by fire lessons learned that have impacted casinos and the gaming industry. We're going to talk about some of the threat actors, their motivations, the sector's unique ICT and IoT challenges and responses, and how you can apply some of those lessons learned in other sectors. All right, so we called our talk The Rise of Cyber Attacks in the Cybersecurity Industry. And that may sound like a hit blockbuster movie or a best-selling book, but we wanted to provide some of the background to help you understand the history that we're talking about. There have been several very high-profile gaming attacks, some ransomware, some not, but they've all had a varying degree of success over the past 10 years, so we're going to get into some of those. So first up, we have the February 2014 attack on the Venetian and the Palazzo casinos in Las Vegas. So patrons of their website who were trying to book their rooms were met with error messages, and it turns out that the Venetian, the Palazzo, and their corporate Sands sites were hacked. Their CEO had made some comments that were a little bit problematic to the hacktivists, so they decided that they were going to hack them. This impacted the Sands casinos in Pennsylvania, Singapore, and Macau. And the site's normal gaming activity was replaced with data from their internal systems, including their employee information and social security numbers. So imagine you go to the website to book your next room and you see all of the employees' social security numbers on the front page. That was the vibe. So there's some question as to whether or not it was malware that turned into ransomware attacks or not. They didn't have the same requirements that they report such things, but this breach ended up costing about $40 million, including both technical repairs and the data that was lost.
And the Golden Nugget Casino confirmed payment card data breaches at all 6 of its venues over a span of 17 months between May of 2014 and through December of 2015. And so hackers installed malware on the company's systems that captured payment card information, including the cardholder's name, card numbers, expiration dates, and also internal verification codes. And this was installed at the company's food and beverage outlets, spas, and also the entertainment locations.
So 2015 to 2017 were some pretty rough years for the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. Had they known that for a total of about 12 months combined, during that time, hackers were living rent-free in the Hard Rock's blind spots and also their computer systems. Customers who visited the Hard Rock's bars, restaurants, hotels, or retail shops had their payment information siphoned off by malware affecting their payment processing systems. Hotel guest names, cards, and information were all stolen. Do you know how they found out that they had been breached? It was not security professionals. It was because a bunch of customers complained that after they had visited the hotel, that their cards had been used following their visit. The worst part, in my mind, a third-party reservation system infected them with malware, again, 3 months later after they had resolved the previous attack, which resulted in unauthorized access to credit cards and reservation information again.
And I'm going to mention the River Casino here, but the date is actually wrong in the graphic. River Casino notified their customers around November 17, 2023 of a data breach. An unauthorized person got into the casino's network in mid-August and gained access to sensitive personal information of numerous gamblers and also employees.
So in a page right out of an Ocean's 11 movie, hackers who allegedly breached the MGM casino originally planned to manipulate the software that was running the slot machines and then send members of their organization into the casino to basically milk the machine for all of the money. So this plan failed miserably. So they stole the company's data and put it up for ransom. This breach caused many casinos to resort to manual mode gaming, which required long lines for cash payouts. Thousands of guests without functioning room key cards, and they had to take a bunch of slot machines offline and issue handwritten IOUs. Can you imagine going to a casino, for the 4 people who admitted that they do, putting your real money in, winning, and getting an IOU back? Hackers claim to have broken into the MGM system within a matter of 5 hours and maintained undetected access for 8 days. So I've got some honorable mentions that are not up here on the graphic, as well from our friends over at the FBI Cybercrimes Notification. 2020, Cash Street Casino in Northern California was hit with a ransomware attack that closed down the casino for 10 days. Also in 2020, Next Peace Tribe casinos in Idaho were shut down, along with a couple of other tribal casinos, all from ransomware attacks. Also, in July of 2021, 6 Lucky Star tribal casinos in Oklahoma were hit with a ransomware attack. The casino's mainframes were held hostage, and the following May, Seminole Nation's casinos in Oklahoma were also breached with ransomware attacks. While the exact numbers were not known, again, because reporting wasn't required back then, the FBI estimated that in total, the tribal casinos had experienced millions of dollars of damages since 2016. And these ransomware attacks all shut down the gaming floors, restaurants, hotels, and their gas stations.
So in 2021, Federal Group, an Australian casino, which is best known as casino operator Tasmania, was hit by a ransomware attack that impacted its hotel booking system and also the poker machines. And so although they refused to pay the ransom, it still ended up costing them millions of dollars.
In the summer of 2022, customers who visited the Palms Casino and Hotel in Las Vegas were met with a message from Google Chrome that visiting the site may harm their computers. Luckily, the Palms got off easily, as their website was only down for about 24 hours due to a malware attack.
And in the summer of 2023, Caesars Entertainment reportedly paid roughly $15 million in an attempt to pacify hackers who threatened to leak sensitive consumer data stolen in the summer cyber attack. And this is about roughly, the original ask was approximately $30 million, and so they only had to pay about half of what was demanded.
And we're going to wind up our breaches with last summer's 2023 MGM ransomware attack, which led to a critical operation disruption, such as disabling their online reservation systems, the room keys, the slot machines, and the website. Their hackers use impersonation and vishing to enter MGM systems. The impact was a financial loss of about $8.4 million a day, and their systems were down for about 10 days. But it took them months to return to normal operations. One of the most visible impacts on the casino floor during this time, which I happened to be there, was the flashing lights on the working slot machines. Maybe about half of them were working, maybe half of them were not. So the lights flash when someone needs to be paid, and no one could cash out. So most of the working machines were flashing by the time they realized that there was going to be a problem. So if you've never hit it big on a slot machine, anytime that you win money, I think it's above $1,500, normally requires a human to come to you. They have to verify the amount of the win, go back to a secret room in the back, get the money, bring it back out, and count it bill by bill into the player's hand. It's very showy. It's a big thing. So now imagine that happens hundreds to thousands of times, and for any amount. So there were people who were on social media at the time who had like cashed out. Maybe they had like 50 cents left on their machine that they couldn't spend because it was a dollar machine, for example, right? So they had to wait literally an hour for people to come and give them that 50 cents, which was absolutely crazy. So they probably got some additional money from people who were just like, you know what, this is dumb. So for reference, the MGM Grand, for example, has 2,500 slot machines. And even if you assume that half of those machines were down, anyone who won any amount of money from the remaining ones, even, like I said, a few cents, were forced to wait until they could be paid. And it ended up being hours-long waits before they were able to get paid out. So for baby hackers like Elise, this was a problem. So although we don't have a lot of information about them, there were also a couple of other 2023 breaches that were flying under the radar and didn't get as much press as the Caesars and the MGM one did. They were the Gateway casinos in London and Ontario, and they were closed down for about 2 weeks following ransomware attacks. But no information about the financial impact of those breaches was reported, as they are not liable to our SEC.
Okay, now that we have observed a rising trend in cyber attacks within the casino industry, it's essential to dissect the types of threats that they are dealing with and the methodologies that cyber criminals employ. This understanding forms the basis of our strategy to combat these attacks effectively. So let's begin with ransomware. And it's the most notorious threat to operations. Ransomware encrypts critical data, effectively holding operations hostage. And the demand for ransom is also accompanied by threats of data exposure, compounding the financial and reputational damage. And so this type of attack disrupts not just the IT infrastructure, but it cascades into operational paralysis, affecting customer service, financial operations, and also the overall brand integrity. But ransomware isn't the only concern. The casino industry, with its vast array of interconnected systems, is also prone to other sophisticated cyber threats. Phishing attacks, for example, target employees through deceptive emails and links to steal credentials. And once inside the system, attackers can move laterally, accessing sensitive areas and escalating their privileges. SQL injection is another prevalent threat. This type of attack targets databases, which are a gold mine of customer and business data. And so by injecting malicious SQL statements into an entry field, attackers can bypass authentication, retrieve, alter, or delete data. And so the implications here extend beyond immediate data loss to severe regulatory and compliance repercussions. And moreover, insider threats, whether malicious or unintentional, pose a significant risk. These can involve employees who either knowingly or unknowingly, or due to negligence, provide cyber criminals with access to sensitive systems and information. And so the sophistication of these attacks highlights the necessity for adopting a multi-layered security approach. This involves not only advanced technical defenses, but also thorough training and policies that minimize human error and mitigate insider threats.
So as we continue our journey through the cyber threat landscape facing the casino industry, it's important to address the technological advancements that have both propelled the industry forward and made them targets for attacks. The integration of ICT and IoT has transformed their operations, but it has introduced complex security operations. So we're going to get into some of those. So casinos today are more than just venues for gambling. They're vast entertainment complexes equipped with advanced technologies. From IoT established slot machines, the poker chips have things in them as well that offer personalized gaming experiences to sophisticated surveillance systems that monitor security. These technologies enhance customer engagement and operational efficiency. However, they also create multiple vectors, attack vectors for cybercriminals. So let's consider the nature of these technologies. IoT devices by design are connected to the internet. And as such, they're susceptible to a lot of different scenarios. This makes them susceptible to a wide range of attacks, from simple unauthorized access to more sophisticated exploits like network hijacking. Furthermore, the data connected and transmitted by these devices are incredibly valuable, providing tempting targets for data breaches. Similarly, ICT systems that manage everything from slot payouts to customer data are centralized hubs that, if breached, can allow attackers to access critical systems. And most of the time they're interconnected, which allows you to move laterally within the systems. So the interconnected nature of these technologies means that a breach in one can easily spread to others and amplify the potential damage. So let's look at a case study of what this looks like. Let's consider an extremely hypothetical scenario where an attacker gains access to a casino's HVAC system through an unsecured IoT device. This could never actually happen, right? Once in the system, they can move laterally, accessing more sensitive areas like the financial systems or the personal data storage. The potential for damage in this scenario is not just theoretical. Similar incidents have occurred in other industries, underscoring the need for comprehensive security measures. But it could never happen in the casino industry. Let's look at, they actually had this breach happen, which is why I keep referring to that. Let's take a look at the smart gaming tables. When these were introduced in 2016, casinos like MGM said that they were going to revolutionize the market, and they made cheating almost impossible. Their words, not mine. And they reduced the need for extensive supervision. So if you're not familiar with the technology, smart gaming tables are equipped with RFID chips, which allow them to collect a lot more data. The biggest benefit to MGM was that it allowed precision marketing. Again, this is all about their data. That's why I said that they're as much data as they are money. It allowed precision marketing based on the customer's playing level, and also allowed them to receive real-time rewards, because it's okay if I'm monitored as long as I get some rewards and some free meals or something, right? So some casinos have taken it a step forward and placed RFID chips in the casino chips as well, and I think most of them do today. This technology gives them remote access to be able to monitor what's going on, not only in the game, but in the building as well, and it also makes it an internet-connected device. Some casinos also use digital payment systems where people are able to use their room keys, for example, for multi-purpose use cases like cashless transactions and getting in their room and also making purchases. So if you add that to the surveillance systems and automated services, you're getting a pretty expansive threat landscape. So while the benefits of integration of ICT and IoT in casinos are operational efficiency and improved customer experience, but I'd like to ask, at what cost? We'll talk about some of the mitigation and security implications of this later in the talk.
So as we integrate more advanced technologies into our operations, we must be considerate of the security risks that come along with this expansion. And so let's explore how the benefits of technology integration also expand the attack surface, introducing new vulnerabilities. So with each new technology that's adopted, from IoT devices to cloud-based services, we inadvertently expand our attack surface. This means more opportunities for cyber criminals to exploit. So many systems are initially set up with weak authentication methods, making them vulnerable to unauthorized access, whether it's simple passwords or outdated access controls. These weaknesses can open the door to cyber attacks. Another critical issue is the lack of encryption. So data transmitted across networks, if not properly encrypted, expose sensitive customer and corporate information. And let's not forget the challenges associated with patching and updating. Easy, right? So many systems, especially older ones, are not regularly updated, leaving them susceptible to known vulnerabilities and attacks. Ensuring that all systems are current is an ongoing challenge and requires diligent IT management. All these risks point toward a central challenge: securing the network. So network security is challenging in a highly interconnected environment where both wired and wireless connections are potential entry points for cyber threats. Securing these connections involves a range of strategies, from implementing robust firewall and intrusion detection systems to conducting regular network audits. It's about creating a resilient network that can not only withstand attacks, but also can quickly recover from them, ensuring minimal disruption to operations. So all of these things highlight the crucial need for comprehensive security strategies. It's clear that our technological landscape evolves, so too must our approach to cybersecurity. We cannot rely on outdated methods. Instead, we must adopt advanced, forward-thinking security measures. Implementing a comprehensive security strategy means integrating layered security measures that address not just the symptoms, but the root causes of vulnerabilities. This includes enhancing authentication processes, ensuring all data is encrypted, and keeping systems rigorously updated. So, on September 11th, 2023, it began as an otherwise typical Las Vegas Friday night with a phone call to MGM Resorts tech support. The person on the line claimed to be an employee who had forgotten their password and was locked out of their account. This seemingly innocent request was the beginning of a cyber attack that would disrupt MGM's operations for several days. Their method, a sophisticated social engineering scheme. As an MGM employee whose details were meticulously gathered from LinkedIn and other social media platforms, they convinced the MGM help desk into granting them initial access to the network. MGM shut down, knocked out their slot machines, prevented online hotel bookings, and required both the hotel workers to check in guests using pen and paper for days. This was a major impact post-breach. There was a major impact post-breach for the MGM. Their occupancy was down 12% in a month after the attack. They had cybersecurity insurance to cover the financial losses and suggested in press releases that the incident wouldn't have a material impact on its performance for the year. And their CEO said in a letter to customers that while no payment card information was stolen, they did steal name, phone number, addresses, date of birth, and driver's license and passport numbers for customers who did business with them before March of 2019.
Eek. So this is a tale of two casinos, okay? We've got two casinos that were breached at around the same time. Both of them were ransomed. One of them chose to pay the money with almost no disruption to their operations, and the other one, Caesars, they chose to pay the money. Oh, I'm sorry, and the other one chose not to pay the money, and they ended up having their systems down for, 9 days, and then they recovered. It took months for them to recover afterwards. So Caesars Entertainment received a $30 million ransom that the hackers demanded. So like the MGM, the hackers used social engineering scheme, which a person pretending to be an employee contacted the help desk to have a password change. According to the SEC filing, aren't these amazing? Caesars said the incident resulted from a social engineering attack on an outsourced IT support vendor. It's always the third party, right? The hackers obtained customer data, including driver's license and social security numbers, for a significant number of the members of its loyalty program. Caesars lost 5% of its stock price in the week after the attack. Otherwise, they were fine. The major difference between Caesars and MGM responses to the ransomware attacks. Caesars operations were not impacted. Elisa and I spoke to some folks in the casino industry whose names and employers have been redacted to protect the innocent, but their overall assessment of the security breaches was that of shock and disbelief. Both of those big breaches last summer were the result of social engineering. What our insiders revealed was that despite being multi-billion-dollar corporations, both casinos were as weak as smaller companies with limited resources when it came to social engineering. Imagine for a second that a single person's failure led to the disruption of operation for 10 days and a loss of at least $110 million. That was the difference between MGM, who did not pay the ransom, and Caesars, who did. It's crazy to me that social engineering attacks such as phishing, vishing, and smishing that all target the human weakest link allowed hackers to not only get access, but to gain elevated access, dismantle the security protocols, move laterally across the network, and cause extensive operational disruptions. So as we've explored the significant challenges posed by ICT and IoT, as well as the broader threat landscape, it's crucial to understand how the industry is actively responding. The casino industry's approach to cybersecurity is not just reactive, which has been for probably the last couple of decades or so, but increasingly it's becoming more proactive, focusing on resilience and rapid response capabilities. So let's talk about how some of those technological innovations have improved that. So first, the industry has made substantial investments in state-of-the-art cybersecurity technologies. For instance, advanced IDS and IPS systems are now the standard in protecting their networks in 2024. These systems are designed to detect and respond to threats in real time using sophisticated algorithms and machine learning to adapt to new threats as they emerge. Furthermore, the adoption of things like blockchain, for example, for secure transactions has started to gain traction. Blockchain's inherent encryption and decentralization offer an added layer of security for financial transactions, which are the core to casinos' operations. Moving on to preemptive measures, the industry has embraced a more holistic approach to risk management. This includes conducting regular penetration testing and vulnerability assessments to identify and address security weaknesses before they can be exploited by attackers. Additionally, disaster recovery and business continuity plans are rigorously developed and regularly updated, ensuring that operations can quickly resume with minimal disruption in the event of another cyber attack. And a key component of their preemptive strategy is also to implement strict access controls and to segment networks, which limit the extent of damage potential breaches could cause.
An essential component of a comprehensive cybersecurity approach focuses on the human element. It's not just about the technology that's deployed, but also about empowering the people who use it every day. So first, we have staff training programs. These programs are designed to empower employees with knowledge on cybersecurity best practices. Through regular training sessions, companies can ensure that every team member, from IT staff to the front desk, understand their role in maintaining the security posture. Employees should learn to recognize potential threats, respond appropriately, and adhere to security protocols, thus becoming the first line of defense against cyber attacks. Equally important are customer awareness campaigns. Customers should be educated on secure online gambling practices, helping them understand the risk and how they can protect themselves. This not only enhances their safety, but also builds their trust in company operations. The effectiveness of technological innovations and educational initiatives is tested in response mechanisms. This is where we see real-time application and outcomes of our comprehensive strategies. Proactive measures and well-informed staff and patrons should be able to rapidly identify and neutralize threats, greatly reducing the risk of data breaches. These response mechanisms are integral to maintaining the integrity of operations and the trust of customers. They ensure that we are not just reactive, but also preemptive in our approach to cybersecurity. An integrated approach not only addresses the immediate cybersecurity challenges, but also sets the stage for long-term resilience. Achieving a cybersecure environment is an ongoing process that requires continuous adaptation and vigilance. As technology evolves and newer threats emerge, so too must our strategies and defenses.
I would also argue that I think both casinos missed the opportunity following MGM's 2019 breach to collect lessons learned to mitigate the breach, because basically the same exact thing happened moving forward, and they were both as a result of social engineering attacks. So, on the technological front, the industry is poised to adopt several groundbreaking innovations. Quantum computing, for example, though still in its nascent stages, promises to revolutionize data encryption, making their systems virtually impenetrable to traditional hacking attempts. Additionally, the integration of blockchain technology is expected to expand beyond transactions to include secure, transparent mechanisms for everything from gaming outcomes to supply chain verifications. AI and machine learning are also, which are used by attackers, are also powerful allies in the cybersecurity efforts for the security practitioners. Predictive analytics powered by AI can help anticipate attack vectors and respond in real time to threats, significantly enhancing preventative measures. And then also, I mentioned the SEC a couple of times, regulatory and compliance trends. So regulations and compliance standards are also evolving very rapidly. The global push for stronger data protection laws, inspired by regulations like GDPR in Europe, are leading to stricter compliance requirements for security for casinos worldwide. This will require ongoing vigilance and adaptation to ensure that they not only meet but exceed the standards to protect their patrons and their operations. In response, I think it's important that they continue to engage in regulatory bodies, participate in shaping these regulations, and integrate compliance deeply into their cybersecurity strategies. These proactive engagements will ensure that they are always ahead of compliance demands rather than scrambling to meet them.
And as technology advances, so do tactics of cyber criminals. We are already starting to see the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning by attackers to automate and scale their efforts. These tools can make attacks more sophisticated, harder to detect, and more damaging. Additionally, the expansion of IoT devices in casinos into casinos introduces new vulnerabilities, potentially leading to more extensive and disruptive attacks. Another growing concern is the threat of mobile and cloud-based platforms. As casinos expand their online presence and offer more mobile-based services, these platforms become more attractive targets for attacks, including app-based hacking and breaches of cloud storage. There you go.
All right, so how do you apply what you've learned today?
Okay, so strengthen every layer of cybersecurity. Separate user logins for critical systems, read-only account, privileged admin accounts. Implementing special access credentials for the privileged admin accounts can add a layer of protection, not only from a security standpoint, but user error as well. And modern MFA authentication, SMS, and email-based one-time passwords are the simple layer of protection of security, but offerings such as authentication apps and biometrics are the belts and suspenders of a well-secured MFA authentication account.
Also, IAM, which is Identity and Access Security Management, is a vital part of a modern IT security that manages access so that the right people can do their jobs and the wrong people, like hackers, are denied entry. IAM systems keep hackers out while ensuring that each individual user has the exact permissions they need to do their jobs and not more than that. So this is achieved by checking a login attempt against an IAM database, which is an ongoing record of everyone that should have access. The other thing that's important is to maintain separate identities. So this is basically separating your work self from your personal self. The most important lesson to be learned from these situations is that employees should keep their work and personal identities separate online and offline. Individuals should not use their work passwords or the work-related information in their personal lives, such as their usernames and passwords. This separation can act as a strong defense, preventing the leakage of sensitive corporate data into personal spheres and vice versa.
Social engineering training. Be aware of the different types of social engineering and how to prevent it. Frequent and up-to-date training sessions act as important reminders of the persistent threat posed by social engineering attacks. And by integrating the most recent strategies used by cyber criminals, these sessions ensure that employees remain informed and vigilant. The more regularly these training sessions occur, the higher the likelihood that employees will stay abreast to the evolving tactics employed by cyber criminals. This proactive approach to cybersecurity education can significantly enhance an organization's defense against these ever-present threats.
But I think that the training should also be based on the roles. So the susceptibility to social engineering attacks is not uniform across all security. I'd argue that it's more relevant to employees that are based in security roles. So it's imperative to customize training programs to cater to specific roles within the organization. Roles that are particularly high risk, including executives and members of crucial departments like the help desk, human resources, and finance, warrant specialized training to make sure that they fortify their defenses against these sophisticated cyber threats. The other thing is dynamic training content. Social engineers adapt and modify their tactics continuously, which means that the training content must evolve as well. Organizations must invest in up-to-date training materials that reflect the current methods and strategies employed by attackers. All right, so that is it for our talk. We would like to thank our BGH family, Jordan Gilmore from Beyond Trust, and Anna Gamboa, this is spelled wrong up there, who helped us with the content for this presentation. So at this point, we can open it up to questions.
I love the... I do love the presentation. It was thorough and contained some stuff that I didn't think you could get away from the gambling industry, admissions that the casino industry might not make. Of course, you did have one slide where it talked about something like resolution tactics, and I could imagine, hey, you, come here. But they won't admit to that either. Anyway, the question I have is, you, for a moment, mentioned the Ocean's movies. And I'm wondering, do you think that the Ocean's movies that the plot had more effect on the casino's readiness preparation, as lax as it may seem, or did it have more effect on the attackers, emboldening the attackers and kind of making them realize that if they play the long game, they win?
I think it probably helped the attackers more than the casinos. I think one of the things that we've seen with the casino industry, and I think it's not unlike other industries as well, is that they've been slow to evolve their security. As I mentioned in the beginning, casinos would rather buy 3 more slot machines than spend more money on security, right? So, seeing those, you would think would say, hey, what are some of the things that they introduced here? How are some of the ways that we can prevent against those? I doubt that a company that's not doing, basic things like patch management or, making sure that the right person is actually getting access to an account is, lost my whole train of thought. No, I doubt that they're basically taking the steps to, make sure that they are more secure, is the point. So I think that it probably helped more of the attackers than it did the casinos themselves.
Did your research review or reveal any point in time where somebody in the casino industry or their partners responded to a question of what happens if well, who would do that? That's not what that's for.
I don't think so. I don't think they're doing like tabletop exercises. I don't think that they're basically looking at the threat landscape, because I feel like a lot of these issues, and part of the reason why we discussed the history at the beginning of the conversation, is that if you are in the industry, you would look at the lessons learned across the sector to try to learn and grow from those things. And as you can see, as far back as 10 years ago, we had breaches that if the industry as a whole was evolving and adapting their security posture, some of these things shouldn't have been happening, right? I mentioned the hypothetical situation of the someone breaking into a HVAC system to get access to to the casino, and that actually happened. That was a real a breach, right? And that was probably, I mean, I guess it was probably 10 years ago. It was a while ago, right? So you would think that, you know, if they remediated and they, you know, looked at the threat landscape, that those same issues shouldn't still be exploited today in 2024 or last year, 2023. I haven't heard of any this year so far.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me just hook right into what you said there. And some of the mistakes and the vulnerabilities are jaw-droppingly basic that we hear in this stuff. Now, it does sound from what you've said like they've gotten hit hard enough, often enough, that they're starting to get religion about security. But if I compare them where they are now to another industry where money is sloshing around, namely the banking industry, it's like night and day.
It is.
Now, I thought the major reason, of course, is, well, banks are highly regulated, right? Oh, but wait a minute. Aren't casinos highly regulated too? The difference, of course, is that that's done at the state level. Do you see any of the state gaming commissions stepping up to the plate for encouraging the casinos to protect themselves and their customers?
I have not seen that in any of my research thus far, and I would go as far as to say that I'm not sure that it's probably going to be happening anytime soon, right? I mentioned as part of my research that I was looking into the use of things like VR, virtual reality and augmented reality, and the adoption of things like blockchain for, you know, basically interstate gambling. And we know that there are federal regulations which prevent, you know, some of those things happening. Like, you know, can we bring crypto, for example, to our local hotel, casino, or whatever? And I think part of the reason why they've been slow to adopt is because that would require them to kind of match up to some of the regulations that we already have existing in the financial sector, which I don't think that they're doing, because again, you know, they'd rather spend money on the things that make them money, which are the data, which drives money from the casino, for the money, you know. So I think that it'll probably be a while, or, you know, a federal regulations that will require them to basically be able to, you know, do the things to make sure that privacy is a focus.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
So I noticed that I guess wondering, I believe that the hospitality industry, a lot of the owners in the hospitality industry, they know each other, and they talk quite often about the things they want to do and the brands they want to buy. I believe the casino industry is kind of similar, but does your research show that? And if they do they communicate about security issues now that they've been hit with 10 years of beatdown?
I don't think that they've been doing it historically. I mean, I would guess that they're having conversations. They probably have like a regular like Thursday night poker game or something. But, you know, I don't think that they're actually implementing and doing the things that they need to be doing, because I think if they were, then we wouldn't be seeing, you know, some of the trends that we're seeing, right? I think that when we look at, I mentioned the tale of two casinos. I think when we look at the industry and you see that they lost $110 million, right? Insurance snapped that up. They put that out on their SEC filing, so that, you know, maybe it didn't impact their bottom line, right? But enough hits of that, like that, and you know, enough increases into their insurance, I think it's going to make them, you know, start to actually care and spend more money on security, especially given the highly visible nature of, you know, when we're talking about IoT, right? The chips have the RFID, the cards have RFID, you know, basically everything in the casino can be tracked from, you know, the eyes in the sky for the most part. So, you know, I think that they would need to actually start implementing some of the best practices that they're seeing across the industry. And, you know, it doesn't necessarily add to their bottom line. You know, I don't think that they care enough to, you know, not buy those extra 3 slot machines and to spend some money on security. But I would argue that a lot of folks, you know, for security is not a priority, you know, and I think that especially if you look at top level executives like CISOs, for example, you know, they're probably always having to make the business case of, you know, hey, we need more money for additional things. Well, you have to provide a business justification for that. And in reality, you know, the casino industry, their 2 primary drivers are money and data, which helps them to, you know, figure out ways to make people spend more money.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you guys for coming out.